Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
Recruiting-accelerator.com.
That's correct. Recruiting-accelerator.com. When you go to store, you can check out and enter the code Wrestling Philosophy for $100 off.
Thank you, Coach. All right, welcome. Tonight we are joined by Joe Caprino, Indiana Matt, right? Coach at Carroll High School. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks for taking the time this evening. I guess first I usually start everyone with their origin story of how they got into wrestling. What's your short snippet of how you got into wrestling?
Oh, how I got into wrestling. Well, since I'm from Indiana, and about 90% of the people that get into wrestling are because they get cut from basketball. And that's what happened to me in 7th grade. And I decided that I would try wrestling. It looked, I guess, fun. It just was something to do. I was always into sports. Wrestled my 7th grade year, same thing happened, got cut from basketball, and then went to the wrestling room and did that. And then freshman year, I was still thinking about playing basketball. You know, it's like third time's a charm. I'm going to make this basketball team. And wrestling coach talked me into it, said, we need a 103-pounder, and I can, you can get a ladder, which was kind of a big deal as a freshman. So I ended up wrestling. I was not very good at wrestling. My freshman year, I was 9-19, and 9 of those wins were by a forfeit. So that was not a very good year. I did the one tournament, I did place 4th out of 5. And I lost to the 5th place finisher. So that's how good I was. Because we wrestled first round, and then the wrestlebacks, he had to wrestle the guy that got 3rd. So I ended up getting the buys to the 3rd place match. So he wasn't too happy, but I was like, hey, this is how it works, I guess. So that's how good I was my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I ended up still struggling early on, finally getting a couple wins, and ended up placing 2nd at conference, which was a pretty big deal. And I ended up, by the end of my high school career, I went to semi-state one time, which is in Indiana. We have sectional, regional, semi-state, then state. So just before state, we have about 4 levels since we have so many schools and stuff. And then college, I went to Findlay in Ohio, wrestled for Sean Nelson there, had a real good time there. Wasn't overly successful, but had a lot of fun, met some great people. And
who are some of the guys you wrestled with there?
Brian Ludwig, head coach at Northern Illinois, Joey Simcoe at who's Tiffin head coach.
Tiffin, right? I just saw him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Brian Cislow, he was my roommate my freshman year. He was he's now the assistant AD at like Tulsa. And I know his name's been coming up lately when they're talking about, possibly adding wrestling there. Matt Tyrell, I think he's at Galleon again. I think him and his brother are coaching there. Adam Morris, I just ran into him a couple of weeks ago. He's at Whitmer, I believe.
Yep,
So,
Northwest Ohio, yeah.
I'm sure you might know who Chad Henderly is. He was a practice partner. And great guy. He's a principal, I think, at one of the elementaries up in around Toledo. But yeah, just a whole group of guys that are all have Ohio ties and stuff. So a lot of great guys that I still talk to this day, and it was a lot of fun and some really good teams. Wrestled, we had Alberto Rodriguez was one of our assistant coaches, who was an Olympian for Cuba. He was just awesome. He was a freak. It was like one of those guys that I don't know. I mean, he was just amazing wrestler. And when he teach technique, you could be there for 6 to 8 hours if we let him, because that's what his job was in Cuba. And he just loved that sport and learned so much. It was pretty cool to learn from him.
Nice. So obviously you love the sport, right? wrestled
Oh,
at Finley, right? What was the inspiration behind Indiana Matt? Was that your brainchild, or did you take it over for someone, or what was that story?
That's another fun one. Basically, when I was in college and when I was in, starting out coaching out of college, Indiana had a message where there was a lot of just talk, and people would put results, and that was kind of the way before text messaging and social media, how to get information out. And it was real popular. I mean, people were on there constantly. I was on there semi anonymously. So, but people, that was where you go to get information on matches and, anything, rankings, things like that. And ends up right as the season started, early just around Thanksgiving, the message board got hacked. And I offered to, hey, I think I can help you out here. And since I'm a software engineer and computer guy, I know how to at least break things worse or maybe even fix them sometimes. And we, I kept offering, and like, no. So a couple of buddies of mine, Chad Hollenball, Eric McGill, I was like, hey, I can have a website up in a half hour. They're like, do it. Like, no, it's going to take too much time. Like, do it. Like, no. They end up talking me into it, and they're like, oh, Eric was like, I'll do the rankings. Chad's like, I'll write some articles in this. We'll help you out. We'll help monitor the message board. So late one night, I want to say it was like December 2nd, middle of the season, I started this website, and it just took off. And we ended up, just running with it and kind of doing rankings, doing articles, message board started going. No one else had anywhere else to go. And, people started directing everyone to my website, and,
Nice.
It's just grown since then, been pretty popular. And I've always,
So what year was that?
That would have been, I think this year will be the 13th or 14th year. So we've had it. So we've had it it's 2008. So yeah, this will be 13th year. But yeah, we just started it on a whim. Everyone, there's always those people that say I hacked the message board. I said I'd have had this thing ready and kind of just in waiting, just flipped the switch and got it up. But it just, as it's grown, I've seen Ohio has some websites. Michigan had some. Illinois Matman was pretty big back in the day. And it's just things like I was like, man, Indiana needs one of those. That'd be cool if Indiana had one of those. And I never said to myself I should start it, and I ended up doing that. So, but I think it's a lot of fun to just interact with the people and kind of grow it like we do. We have our own podcast, our guerrilla radio that we do during the season with Mike Reiser and I, and this year kind of expanded it with Drew Hughes, who was a wrestler at Michigan State, talking college wrestling and just wrestling in general, and just things like that. People really like to tune in and look at us talk about wrestling and stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So where did the 800-pound gorilla? When did that come into play, or what's the story behind that? I gotta ask.
That one's a funny. Chad Hollenball, who good friend of mine, the guy I coached with, and helped me start the website, and he kind of came up with that right away, mainly just because we got a lot of pushback from a lot of the people that were kind of with the Coaches Association, people that have been through everything, and who's this guy kind of trying to take over and do this. And so our whole thing was, we're the 800-pound gorilla. You can't stop us. When you face an 800-pound gorilla, the old saying that you get you're done when he gets tired. So so we just kind of have kept it. I actually, when he had the logo redesigned about 10 years ago, I was like, I had Cliff Fretwell. He was doing like, if you don't have to put the gorilla in there, but if you can, that'd be cool. And he ended up putting a couple logos together with the gorilla, and I'm like, we're doing that.
Cliff's
staying
awesome.
with it. Yeah. So it was one of those things that was kind of a joke, kind of a jab at the people that didn't think we'd survive, and now we're here, and it's kind of cool to see that, talking to people in Ohio, talking to everywhere, everyone knows who we are, and it's kind of neat to see the growth of the popularity, and that we're just not in Indiana. All the rankings guys come to the website. College coaches always like, oh, I love your website. I can find information really quick, and I wish everyone had a website like that kind of stuff. So kind of validates what we've done.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Cliff kind of faced the same thing, I think, down in Georgia, I believe. You know, he had some pushback when he was starting the compound and things like that down there. You know, kind of getting some pushbacks. They didn't, you know, like, who is this guy, right? So that's cool. You got a tie with the logo with Cliff. He does some awesome stuff there. Um,
Yeah,
I brought him in a few times up here to Sandusky to do camps, and you know, great for the sport.
yeah,
Um,
he's a great guy. He's coming up to Carroll actually in a couple of weeks, so
oh,
for
is he?
camp. Yeah, so I'm
What
kind of
can
excited.
like
We're
a
just doing
funk?
one at our high school, so
What's he gonna show? Bottom funk or what's he?
funk and legs, I believe, is what we're
Okay,
going to
yeah,
have him show. So we're kind
he's
of
awesome.
excited.
That system he puts together. It we had our heavyweight doing all kinds of stuff I never thought he could do a couple years ago. It was awesome.
Yeah,
It
no,
was
he's a great guy.
right. So we crossed paths. It had to be what 2009, 2000. When did you start the Hoosier Open preseason Open?
That would have been the 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010 year.
All right, I might have came in
It
like
was our
11
first.
or 12. I don't know. I
I
forget what
think it
year
was
I was there,
11.
but that's where we first crossed paths. I remember we brought some guys up there. So
Yeah,
what
that
I
would have
guess
been.
what was the you know, I'm asking all these origin stories. What was the thought behind that?
Um, I got hoodwinkled by Sarah Koenig, who's the assistant directors at the Super 32.
Right.
We actually became friends on the old Wrestling Talk
Okay.
message board. That's an old one. That one, it was a very just select people. She was on there, like Christian Piles was on there, Jason Bryant, a bunch of just people that it's kind of funny to see where we are now. But we all got we were on that board, and she had, they were just the year before, I think they sold out in like 20 minutes or something, and they're
Right.
like, we got to do something. And she's like, hey, do you want to host a qualifier? I'm like, oh sure, let's yeah, this will be fun, and it won't be that hard, won't so ended up doing that the first year they had them. I've had one every year. This was my 12th one this year, so um, we did that, and it was really
First year was
small.
like 200 people, and now you're up to over what
Yeah,
cap it at 800. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. We had 171. I think there was a few less than that.
Oh wow.
But yeah, we grew that to, I mean, it just started growing, and then I don't know how or why, but yeah, we capped it at 800. We had some petitions, so we technically had 823 that were in the tournament, and 714 actually wrestled. So yeah, it's grown, and people are begging to get in now. One of the kids that won it this year, hit, last year, obviously it was a hot commodity just to have a wrestling tournament, and
Right.
we closed registration and had a petition period, and then after that, we're not going to allow any more entries. And I had a guy end up winning Super 32, just trying to get in. I was like, sorry, this guy, one of the kids that won it, his dad emailed me last year, and he's like, I'll never forget that email. I tried to get my son in this tournament. It was a little bit late, and you just responded, registration is closed. We are not taking any more entries. And he's like, I didn't know what to think about that. So they came back, and he won it this year. He registered on time. So he's like, I respect you for, sticking to your rules and stuff, and not just letting everyone in. And
Right.
like, it was, it's not easy to, especially when these kids are good and stuff. But I mean,
You gotta draw the line, right? I mean, you can only fit so many people, especially last year. I heard nothing but awesome things you guys the last 2 years. And for those watching, that's you the video watchers, that's the tournament behind you, right? The last 2 years. You had to move it out of it's always been at Carroll High School then?
First year was at Northridge High School, which was a school that one of my friends was a principal at. He helped me run it, and some other people. And then 2 years after that was at Garrett High School, where I went to high school and I was coaching at the time. And then for the next 6 or 7 years, it was at Carroll High School, which really nice facilities. I mean, we can get 8 mats in our main gym, which is unheard of.
That's crazy.
And then, yeah, the view from there is pretty cool. And then last 2 years have been at what's called the Plex South in Fort Wayne. So it's been they've been really good to us the last minute. They say last year, everyone was worried about COVID, and
that was like the
kind of,
first big tournament last year, right? I mean, kind of kicked off the season. Your tournament was like the first one that remember talking to people who went to, like, wow, they did it great, right? You had the sessions and
Yeah, that
kind of
was
came in, wrestled, and you're out, right?
yeah, that's what we did that last year to try to limit as many people as we can in the building at the same time. Obviously, we ran that again this year. People loved it. We were in, I mean, each session ended up being about 4 to 4.5 hours. Depends on if you're in the championship bracket, you're probably done about 4 hours. But we run 12 mats and there's about 4 or 5 weights. And if you get in that losers bracket, you're going to be up every
Be ready.
15, 20 minutes. Yeah. I mean, you come there to wrestle. I mean,
Right.
and I kind of like it. People love it, and parents, the coaches, I've talked to coaches, they're like, we don't care because we plan on being there all day anyway. So,
Right.
I mean,
Doesn't change
whether
the
you
name
have
of the
sessions,
wrestling, you're wrestling back to back, right?
Yeah. The parents love it. Yeah. Parents just love not, hey, I can block out a 4 or 5 hour time span where I'm here. Great. We know what our day is going to look like. We don't have to sit around and watch everybody, wrestle and just, hours, you have 2 or 3 hours or, whatever between matches to start. And then all of a sudden your tough matches, you have 15 minutes between. So I think we're going to keep it this way. People seem to like it, and we're kind of a little bit able to get a little bit more wrestlers in just because we can run these shorter sessions and get them in and out.
Group them, right? That's awesome. Yeah, definitely learned some things from COVID, right?
Yeah. I didn't know how this would work. I didn't know how it would. Last year, I tried to separate the weights as evenly as possible. It actually wasn't too bad, but it was. This year I was a little bit better. After registration, everyone was within about 5 wrestlers. Every session was, and I did that before we even started registration. So I was pretty proud of myself there.
Nice. So how's that petition how do you do the petition setup?
I just put a Google form out there. They fill it out with their name and information, kind of what they've accomplished throughout the year, what their credentials are, and then I kind of approve them or deny them. But I get everybody in, and then I, as it goes on,
as people drop out, you kind of add the higher criteria wrestlers.
We put up to 25 that we can allow, so I can basically my tournament will be like 825.
Gotcha.
It's kind of and because I know we're going to lose 70 to 80 kids. That's kind of been for the past
10%.
Yeah, about past 5 years, I think we've had a cap on our numbers, just so I don't go too crazy with not knowing how many people were going to show up. If I didn't have a cap last year, I don't know how many we'd have had. We might have had 1,500.
It's wild.
Yeah. And it sold out about 10 days last year, 750. And people, we had a Valiant Prep group from Arizona come out. We had some kids from California. I'm just looking at, we had like 17, 18 states last year, which was just amazing. I'm like, half the country's come here. And we had a kid from Oklahoma this year. I think we've covered like 25 states. Kids from 25 states have come to the tournament over the years, which is kind of neat. And Canada. We've had a couple of international kids.
Oh, that's sweet.
So we can call it an international tournament, I believe.
That's awesome. So then you coach also, right, at Carroll High School? Is that right?
Yep. I've been coaching since I got out of college. Didn't know if that was exactly something I wanted to do, but need some extra money and started coaching and kind of enjoyed it. And just coached a lot of pretty good kids. Not only through the high school I did, but also through the club that we had pretty solid club for quite a few years. Guys that have had pretty good amount of success in college. Riley Lefevre, he was a 4-time D3 champ. Him and his brothers religiously came to the club, and then I know he's just now a assistant coach at IU right now, so that's pretty cool to see after he's training at Penn State for a few years, which is I was so jealous of him. I kept always trying to pick his brain. What are you guys doing there? What's so different and stuff like that. So it's really pretty cool. Travis Marquilio, who was a 3-time NAIA All-American, he's now coaching at Indiana Tech, which is kind of cool. It's so neat to see these kids that you're coaching, and they both actually won IPO tournaments, which is kind of neat to see. So now they're out coaching and recruiting. They were both at the tournament recruiting and stuff like that. Hayden Lee was an NAIA champ. I coached him. There's just so many kids that went through our club. That was pretty cool to have a really good run of kids that not only had success in high school, but also collegiately, which that's kind of more fun to watch them do well at that level.
That's awesome. That there's no feeling like it, right? You can't describe it when you see someone you're coaching kind of grow up and now take their own, future in their hands and kind of run with it, right?
Yeah, we were at they have a food truck thing over here at one of the local restaurants, food truck Thursdays, and my wife and I went there one night, and there were like 4 of the kids I coached that were state qualifiers that were there. And it was just funny. It's like one of them was in my wedding, and he was like 30. Right. I'm like, and my wife's like, no, he's still a baby. He was in our wedding. I was like, our wedding was. It's like, no, he's still a baby. He was in our wedding. That kind of stuff. But yeah, it's pretty neat to see the kids, grow up and see them at where I coached for majority of where I went to high school, Garrett. They came over to Carroll for a middle school meet, and all their middle school coaches were kids I coached, which is kind of neat to see that, you've made that impact on these kids and they're still coaching, giving back to the sport. And, whether I beat them or not, or they beat me, it's fun to see that, they're still giving back to the sport, and hopefully I gave them a little bit of love for that sport that I have.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So you were able to have the state tournament at Bankers Life last year, which is awesome. As we talked, in Ohio here, we were in our high school. We're back at the Schottenstein Center this coming year, which is awesome. But last year it was kind of different. What are you expecting for this year coming up? Anything else changing in Indiana?
Not that I know of yet. It sounds like they were our state association was pretty hands off and kind of just let everyone do their own thing, which was a little bit scary at first because we weren't sure what we could do or what we, any guidance. They just kind of said, just run it. And our schedule, especially because of the school where we're at, we don't have a conference. We're not bound by anybody to wrestle anybody. So we were usually kind of the first ones shuffled out of a tournament or a duel or whatever. So we had to kind of just make things up as we go. I hope it's a little more stable this year because that's, not only preparing practices, getting kids ready and stuff, and now you have to try to find events, on a weekly notice. It was never easy, and I was so glad to have the state series start up just because I knew that we didn't have to worry about all that stuff. So it was a lot of texting with coaches, a lot of talking to looking on our message board that has teams looking for events. It's like, hey, we have an opening, you guys want to come? Events getting canceled, and just that was probably the most stressful thing, is just like not knowing if our event that we were going to have this week was actually going to go on. So hopefully this year, I think sounds like we're going to probably do pretty much the same thing. I haven't heard of any of the big events being canceled yet, or so hopefully cross our fingers that we're able to have everything like we did last year.
Right. Good point. Yeah, same here. Let's hope, one day at a time. Right. You went to the Who's Number One event, right, this past weekend, right? How'd that go?
It's a great trip. Dallas is pretty cool. Got to go sightsee a little bit, but some great wrestling. Jesse Mendez, and you went there to watch Mendez and Christian Carroll wrestle. Unfortunately, they did not come out with wins. 2 great matches. I think Carroll would have been, if he wouldn't have bled, I think he might have had that match. That takedown at the end was pretty darn close. I don't know if they had the good view. I kind of saw the replay from my vantage point, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to be overturned, but that was, 2 seconds he had it. That was pretty close. And then Mendez just had a barn burn of a match with Swiderski. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
That was just like, it'd be fun to watch those two just bang heads for 20 minutes because they're clones of each other and they're just going after each other. They trade takedowns. Real close match. And Jesse's a special kid, and it's not sitting well with him from what I've gathered from talking to his dad and his coaches. Like he wants another shot at him. So I think he's going to try to find him. So I don't know if it might be in the backyard or where it's going to be, but I think Jesse's not the type that's going to take a loss easy. So he's going to, I'm kind of excited to see where he goes. Carroll, he's such a, man, that kid's big, and he has such a crazy story because he hasn't wrestled a high school match yet. And
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. His freshman year, he was injured and didn't wrestle all year. And then sophomore year, he transferred, and the state association
makes you sit.
Basically, made him sit. And technically, he can't wrestle till January now.
No way.
So
he transferred, or what's the?
Yeah, it was basically what's called a prior contact rule. So if you've had coached a kid previously, and then his coach is at that high school, at a different high school, they can say that it's undue influence basically, and it's the punishment, I guess, is 365 days from the day you transfer to the school, and he didn't transfer to the new school till like the semester last year. So so he's going to go into the state series with about 10-15 matches maybe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Any other crazy? I mean, we in Ohio changed ours. It used to be you had to sit out the first half of the season if you transferred. Now it's crazy. They change every couple of years. But any other crazy rules in Indiana? This year we're changing the weights this year already. Are you guys changing the weights, or what do you guys?
Not yet. I know they were usually pretty much sticklers with the NFHS rules. So I think, I don't know unless there's a lot of pressure to change them, but I'm pretty positive we'll stick with 14. I know last year there was a survey sent out when there's rumors that they might go down to 13. I think our commissioner, he's pretty adamant that we stick with 14 weight classes. But the biggest one that kind of irritates people, the biggest rule is our travel rule, that we can travel 300 miles from the border, which is from any border. So like we're in northern Indiana, we could travel honestly to Alabama, but if any team you play, whether no matter the sport, wrestling, football, basketball, whatever, has to be within that 300-mile radius too. So I remember,
so you can travel beyond the border 300, but that team can't be at 301.
Yeah. So
what's that matter, right?
Yeah. So like I remember this is like when I was in college, but Mater Dei went over to Columbus, and I think they wrestled St. Ed's and St. Paris Graham, or they wrestled some pretty good teams. It was right before the national duels, but they couldn't wrestle a team from like West Virginia or like Pennsylvania, somewhere like that, because they were just out. So they, it was like, we meet you guys in the middle. But yeah, that's the one that, we could technically make it to Ironman. I mean, I know there's a lot of teams I'd love to go to somewhere like Ironman, but with all those teams from way out of, from California, Texas, and New Jersey, and that.
What's do they have a reasoning for that, or is it just because that's how it always is?
Yeah, it's been like that forever, and I know that they did put someone did submit like a proposal to change that a couple of years ago. I don't know if anything's gone on with that or anything. It's moved past. They tabled it, and I'm hoping that they change it sometime soon. I think I won't mind the 300 miles from the border. You can get pretty far. You can get to anywhere you really need to go, especially for wrestling or for really any sport. And hopefully they can say, well, okay, especially for the individual sports, wrestling, cross country, golf. Does it really matter? Yeah, does it really matter? We're only going to Columbus, Ohio, which is 2.5-3 hours away. I don't care if a team from Florida comes up. That's on them.
That's on them to travel. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter to you. So why? What
Yeah. So like even like a team from Florida can't come to Indianapolis to, or Fort Wayne to wrestle us. So it's like that's on them. That's not
individual kids. Like you said, it's certain those kids that need that competition or that experience of top level talent, right?
Yeah, but I know like we have some teams that go over to Brecksville, and Brecksville is kind of under that. We have some pretty good teams that are going over there. I think Crown Point, and I know Brownsburg are going over there. Now that puts the Brecksville tournament administrator, like I know they've had teams from Pennsylvania and stuff, and they're like, they're like, well, do we take this Indiana team and kick out these Pennsylvania teams? Do we, so
Right.
now they're under the gun to make sure that, they have to have that, tournament that's kosher with Indiana rules and Ohio rules. And,
Yeah. It's just
and
extra work for not, I don't know. I don't see the point, but
yeah,
maybe
I
I'm
don't
missing
either.
something, but that's
I,
wild.
yeah. So, the other one that people will never understand unless you come to Indiana is we have very limited wrestlebacks in our state series.
Huh.
Our sectional, which usually has between 8 and 12 teams, there are wrestlebacks for third and fourth. If you lose first round, you're done. If you're in a rat tail match, if your sectional has more than 8 teams and you lose that first round, you're done, which isn't
Just
too
to
big
keep
of a
it
deal.
one day, is that the purpose, or?
Yeah. And then our regional, which has 8 kids, if you lose first round, you're done. Your season's over with. So there's no wrestleback for our regional, and the top 4 advance. So you just make it the semifinals. So that first round is just so important, making sure you get a good matchup. And it's not as bad as it used to be, because it used to be 4 sectionals. Like when I was in high school, it was 4 sectionals met up, 1 versus 2 in that first round. And you had 2, a sectional with a real good kid and the other one with 2 good kids. You didn't want to get that draw where you had 2 highly ranked kids, or 2 good kids wrestling first round. So it's 1 versus 4 now, 2 versus 3. So it's a little less dramatic. But the big one is our semi-state, which are 16-man brackets, and you got to win your first 2 matches.
Just to get the state.
Yeah, just to get the state. And if you lose either of those 2 matches, you're done. Your season's over. And that, it is, the ticket round is just it. There's ups, no room for error. There's no second chances, and it's crazy. The craziest things happen. Brayton Lee has 1 loss on his career, and that's in the ticket round. He just, he admits it. He just froze. He just didn't. It was such a nerve-wracking match that, luckily he was a freshman. So, but we've had upsets like that. Just crazy. There's a couple years ago where there's a rematch for the 3rd place match at state in the ticket round. Yeah, the rematch because just the way the brackets fell and the kids were in better section or regionals and matched up. And there's always, when those brackets come out, you just scour for just those ugly, like those, we call them the death draws. It's like, someone's going to be left at home that should be at state, and it's nerve-wracking as a coach, when you go to the semi-state, that ticket round is just so, you can feel like the tension in the air. Like at any other tournament, you have your semifinals and you have your blood round or your quarterfinals, it just, it's nerve-wracking. And then like that semifinal round, when everyone's punched their tickets, it's so much, you can just feel the air out of the building. It's so hard to explain if you're not there, but it's just a crazy round of wrestling. And my phone's blowing up, the guys that work with the website and stuff, they're always at other places. They're like, oh, so-and-so got beat. Oh my goodness. Just crazy matches, people getting slammed and, staying down with whether it's legit or not.
Like that's just wild. Then you don't have any chance. At least in Ohio, you do it first round, you have a chance to wrestle through the backside, right? If a guy lays down, and oh wow.
Yeah. So like if a guy lays down in Ohio in the semi, in the quarterfinals, and they win, they still have to wrestle another match to win to make it. Like here in Indiana, you don't have to. So there have been times when suspiciously people lay down. I don't. We've all seen it, whether you like it or not. And I had a kid one year in a ticket round wrestling a good match, and he picked the kid up, and he was a 215 pounder, so he wasn't. So you pick someone up at that size, it's not going to be a fun return to the mat. And he legitimately slammed him. It wasn't wasn't malicious. He just picked him up and put him down hard. And I'm sitting there like, oh, we're going to lose this match. We're going to lose this match. And their coaches are like, they didn't even go out there say, you get up, you finish this match. And I'm just sitting there like, thank you. So and our kid ended up winning semi-state, which is pretty cool. But it was one of the scariest things. You're just sitting there if a kid just has earned it. He's been dominating this match. Then oh no, you can't do that. And it's
that's a horrible
it
system.
takes it's taken years off of my my life that round.
Yeah.
I mean, the one year we lost 3 kids back almost pretty much back to back, and
Yeah, because that round, right? It's probably they're all wrestled at the same time. It's
yeah, it was like a 35, 40, and like 52 pounder, and it was just horrible. And I ended up the head coach and I mean, we were wired the same way, and we didn't talk to each other for like at least a month, if not 2 months. And it was like so weird. It's like, hey, how's it going? We didn't know what to say, because I mean, we had kids that were right there, and they were in those matches. We obviously think they should have won. It's like we should have at least gotten one through, and it's like that's the way it is. That round is so brutal, and I feel bad for the kids. I mean, that's what you wrestle your season for basically one match. Right. And it could be decided by the luck of a draw. Whether you get I mean, there's going to be an easier draw. There's going to be the harder ones. I mean, you look at those there's regionals, and if they have 2 or 3 good kids, which one you don't want to draw into, and which ones you want to draw. So,
you don't know until the draw happens, right?
Yeah. Oh, and that's it. That's the most popular weekend on the website is just people are just looking.
I was gonna say it's probably good for content though, right?
Oh yeah, people are just oh my goodness, look at those draws. And I've been the one that usually gets those brackets out quicker, because they just give out our formula. So I've been usually a little bit ahead of the game. So everyone's just like, when are the brackets? When are the brackets? Like, they're coming. Hold on, I gotta wait for the formula. So so
they give you the formula, then you make the bracket, or how's that work?
Yeah, they give us the formula. It's all just like regional A number
after
1.
The tournament's over, they give you the formula.
Yeah, after regional's complete, after all of them are complete,
and then they just put the formula on the web out there, and then everyone has to kind of make their own bracket.
Yeah, they have to figure out the so, but I figured it. I mean, I have a nice little spreadsheet that I can plot. I just copy and paste. Yeah, copy and paste, and I already have all the wrestlers in there, so it's pretty quick.
Indiana Matt for the brackets then.
Yep, and then we had a little spice to them. We put the rankings and other stuff that are in there, like there's semi-state and state rankings, so people can kind of see the ugly matchups and stuff. So it's been. I mean, it makes for us to increase our traffic and everything.
Yeah, that's cool.
It makes it easier especially when they have rankings and stuff. They can see those big matches. So it's just. I mean, that semi-state weekend it's a lot of highs and lows, to say the least.
That's how districts are here in Ohio, right? They kind of like the Conti semi round, right? You have you win, you make it in, because you're top 4. You lose, you're hoping for alternate status, which is slim to none to get in. But that's wild. They give you the formula in Ohio. We just gotta wait till they post them. It used to be back when I wrestled, it was follow your man. Speaking of like, making it, if you lost the first round, your guy had to win to stay in the bracket. But you'd also have to call. They'd only give you a quarter of the bracket. So you'd have to call a number and hope you got through. It wasn't busy. And they'd give you, for your who you're wrestling, or you tell them how this works. I think you tell them I want the top quarter of 119 pounds or whatever it was. And they'd give you those 4 names. You had to call back and like, all right, I want the second quarter.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, how does that make any sense? I mean, I guess that's how you did it before the internet, but just give someone the 1 through 16 and let them call everybody. Let them. I don't know.
Oh my goodness, Oh geez, that would be horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty archaic. But I guess we're not dealing with. You have to win or make the semis. I guess we're blessed. We don't have that in Ohio. I guess
Yeah. It's one of those things that a lot of people that come from different states and stuff, and they look at you like what did you just say?
You in the 70s, right? Because that's how high it would be.
Yeah. So I mean, we've asked for wrestlebacks a million times. The state association, they don't want it. I mean,
just because the timing is they want to fit it like on like one day, or how is it?
I mean, at this point, I think they're gonna stick with it. They just don't. care to change it. They the one commissioner, he's not retired and everything, but his basic response was, we only care about a champion, which
Wow.
kind of is rub salt in the wound. I mean, you have in track, you have different things like they have like a callback if you make a certain standard that if you run 100 in a certain time, you're no matter what place you place at their regional or semi-state, you get to state.
Gotcha.
There's no question. And then they also have, if the lanes aren't full, if, they get some more kids hit standards. If the lanes aren't full, they'll take the next 4 or 5 people that are the fastest, and these kids deserve to be at state. But we don't even at state, if you lose Friday night, you don't place either. There's no wrestlebacks there. So it's a 60. I mean, so Friday night matches, I mean, there's some just brutal matches on Friday nights. We've had years where a state contender gets hurt and drops down to 4th at semi. We had actually Alex Scotty this year. He was a returning state champ and two-time runner-up. Got hurt at semi-state, dropped in the ticket round, ended up just dropping down to 4th. So then we're looking at what's the actually, because he's a 4, he's gonna go get to 1. You knew there's a state champ that was gonna, or a semi-state champ that's gonna run into him, and it's like, oh goodness, that's not good. I mean, we're just looking like who's gonna get him, and he ends up winning state again and had to go. I mean, obviously he had to
the tough route.
Go through tough route, but he did it, and it's just And so at state, you have to win first round, and then the second round, which is our quarterfinals. If you lose there, we do have a pseudo wrestle back where you go for 5th or 7th, but if you lose in the semis, you automatically go for 3rd. So a little bit better, but it's still one of those things that's like, I mean, we have the facilities, we have the manpower to run a couple more rounds, and
I would think Banker's Life could fit a ton of mats down, right?
Yeah, we only run 4. They like the the simplicity,
really?
Which it is nice to be able to.
It has to fit 8 easy, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we could get 6 to 8. There's plenty of room on the floor there, so they could. I mean, we could run at least 2 more mats and be able to run full consolations. And get those kids. If you lose first round, there shouldn't be that much pressure on a kid on a Friday night to do it. So I think this year they did split it up, which is very interesting. On Friday they had 106 through 145 in a morning session, like at 9 o'clock, I believe, and then they brought in the big guys 152 on up at like 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So which kind of was a COVID type thing, so they could get more fans in, more parents could get in basically. Right. So that was nice. And I know it sounds like they really like that format, so hopefully we can kind of urge them to allow some wrestlebacks, since if you're going to run it all day Friday, you might as well run a little bit more wrestling.
So it's just Friday, Saturday, the tournament then? Yeah,
it's only a 2-day tournament. It's the finals are pretty cool. You drop down to one mat, spotlights on that one mat. They turn out all the lights, and we had an awesome announcer. He's been doing it 30, 40 years. I can't remember. I mean, he's
the same one. He's pretty badass here in Ohio too. So it's kind of he's like sound of the tournament,
Yeah, if you ever hear, like, if anyone ever narrates the state tournament, anything with wrestling, his voice has to be in it. His name's Kevin Whitehead, and he kind of just took it off. His story is awesome because he just kind of took it as a whim one time and started announcing it, and then they have a face off before everything starts, and they call one wrestler and they tell all his credentials, state placer, going to this somewhere for college and all that stuff, and big face off, and it's really cool to see, and you just get chills down your back, and it's fun to watch and be a part of. I was a part of it this year. It was pretty cool. But it's just they broadcast it on Fox Sports, really great production, and man, it's chilling when you hear that voice come on, talking about your kid or, these kids. And, it's pretty neat. Kevin even did I don't think he understands how many people have named their kids with hopes of having him announce their names.
Right.
Because there's, it's always funny there on the message board. You always talk about, what names were your favorite names that you heard they, and it's, he always had his. And when my son was born 5 years ago, I kind of jokingly said, I go, I can't wait till he's at state so you can announce his name. And he's like, I don't want to burst your bubble. I don't think I'm going to be doing it in 15 years. Oh. so he actually did some a little birth announcement, so which is kind of cool. So I had that really saved, cool. And yeah, so it's pretty. As you don't understand how many people have done this, how many people have like, how would he pronounce my kid's name? So but it's kind of fun thing. Which makes Indiana wrestling. It does make it special. It does make it fun, for our fans and stuff. And we fill up Binker's Life pretty. When we had Nick Lee, Chad Red, that place was packed to the brim. And that, it's just, Indiana wrestling fans are really knowledgeable. I want to say that's because of my website, because we have so much information on there.
Right.
They love the website. I know we had a book, and it's been 20 years that's been put out with all of the state placers, state qualifiers, and all this from 1920 through like 2002. And one of my side projects I'm trying to get done is get another one out. But people always ask about that book, and they always want to know, did so and so qualify for state? Did they? We've all run into those guys that are like,
right.
Oh yeah, I was a state champion.
Yeah.
Now people can go to this little website in Indiana, and no, it doesn't say. I went to your school, and there's not your name's not on there. Oh yeah, the walk of shame. yeah. So it's kind of funny how many times I get asked, do you know, have you ever heard of this guy? Did he ever place? I go, what school's he from? So I just go right to their school. Like, nope, I don't see his name. So he never qualified for state. And so it's pretty fun to be able to fact check all those people. But but Indiana wrestling fans are just so legible, which is kind of crazy. They love some of the past guys, they know them like it's the back of their hand. They know their records and stuff. It's kind of crazy to think. You think of Indiana being a basketball state, but we have some really passionate fans and really knowledgeable fans. And I have some, I put in some trivia out there, and I have to make it like so specific. Name the 5 schools that have the most, state qualifiers from 1970 to 1985 in order to get at least a couple wrong answers. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy that, it's fun. It's neat to see that, that people really enjoy the sport in Indiana, and, we're not just a basketball state.
That's cool. So you mentioned, we're talking how, crazy intricate your site is, and you mentioned you have a team. So who are some of the team members you have on the site, and kind of what do they do for you?
I got Mike Reiser. He does the state rankings, and he does the East Chicago semi-state rankings. We have kind of basically 2 sets of rankings. It's our state rankings, and then our semi-state, which is the basically a fourth of the teams in each like little corner. So he does East Chicago, which is Northwest Indiana, basically South Bend, all the way through like Lafayette area, semi-state rankings, and then our state rankings. He also helps me does the podcast, the Guerrilla Radio. He's a great friend. I kind of just met him through the website.
How long you guys been doing that?
The
Guerrilla Radio.
We started that about 5 or 6 years ago.
Nice.
Just kind of saw some things like, we use it as a Google Hangout, and kind of just started it and renamed it a couple years ago as Guerrilla Radio, kind of made it an official podcast. But it's just, we do it live on Facebook, and got so many people come in there and chat and ask questions.
Season, you said?
Yeah, during the season, pretty much every week, sometimes a couple times a week.
Oh, nice.
We try to do it a little bit in the off season, but it's so hard. He has 2 daughters and heavily involved in softball, so he kind of takes his break from wrestling. But he's a great. He does broadcasts for different streaming things around he's like his his wife doesn't like it when he goes to wrestling. And she used to go with him, but now she's like, I don't go because I don't even get to hang out with him because everyone just mobs him and tells him about, oh, my kid, that loss the other day wasn't we were sick, or but he gets so much. I mean, he's like a celebrity, and
Nice.
it's been kind of cool because it's because of the Guerrilla Radio, because we obviously show our faces and everything, and everyone comes up to us, and it's funny because people come up to it, and I'm like, I think I should know you, but I don't know who you are. But when they see your face every week, they kind of
know
think that you see them. So but he's been great with everything with the website. Dane Filling, he does the team rankings. Great guy. He never wrestled in high school, but he went to Belmont High School. I don't know if you've ever heard of Belmont. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 top programs in the state, just overall in history and tradition. It's a small town real close to the Ohio border, but they just love their wrestling. They have a radio show down there. Him and another guy do a weekly radio show about wrestling during the season.
That's awesome.
And they broadcast their dual meets and some other schools around them, dual meets and stuff. And it's crazy. How many radio shows do you, like a true radio, like you turn into 92.3 or something, 92.7?
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. If you're ever in, like, I know one of my buddies, Ryan Dixon, I give him a shout out from Indian Lake. He said they were driving back from a match one day, and he's like, I returned on the radio and there's wrestling was on, and it was Indiana wrestling. I was like, oh yeah, that's WZBD. He's like, what? I go, yeah, those are my guys. So, but it's pretty cool. He does our team rankings. Great guy. He kind of started before Indiana Matt kind of started. He was trying to do some kind of team, like just dual results and stuff, like keeping records of that. And he's like, man, you need to do that with Indiana Matt. So I've eventually gotten to where I kind of like it as far as the results and stuff we have. I also have Caleb Spires. He does the Fort Wayne semi-state rankings. That's my area. I kind of retired from that after just not doing as good of a job as I wanted. And when you're coaching kids, it's kind of hard to do rankings. And
put you in a bad. You can't win, right? You're coaching. You can't.
Yeah, my kids were like, man, I should be higher. I go, I think you're really probably the top 1 or 2, but I can't put you too higher. I get too much crap from people. So I handed it off to him. We have pick'em contests for semi-state and state on the website, which is super popular, and there's a lot of trash talking, and we always teased him because he kept winning and kept being on the top couple people, and that's pretty hard to do that pick'ems, and especially with no wrestlebacks. You gotta do these based on. Yeah. So we kept teasing them. I go, if you keep doing so well with this, we're gonna hire you. And so it basically did.
Good way to
so he's a
process right there.
Yeah, so he's a great, he loves the sport. He much like some of the others, he wasn't the greatest wrestler, but just loves the sport and just a nerd. And so obviously he can pick kids to win and stuff. And his goal every year is to make sure that he has all the state qualifiers ranked in the last semi-state rankings. When we do our rankings, it's kind of a game, but it's also kind of fun that we right before sectional starts, we lock the rankings, no more changes. So say a top ranked guy gets hurt, obviously this year could have hit with COVID. Luckily no one did. Or someone gets upset, misses weight, all the things that happen during we have, remember it's a 4-week season, 4-week state tournament, bad draw somewhere, we lock them, and we're still, Mike's over 80% accurate on the rankings of ranked kids that make it to state with no wrestlebacks, with locking them for semi-state or 3-4 sectional, which is crazy. Wow. That's pretty good. So he I keep telling him if he gets below 80%, I'm gonna have to find someone else. So he keeps it up. He keeps doing better and better every year. Then I have Howard Cotty. He does this Newcastle, which is the Indianapolis area semi-state rankings. Does a great job. His son, like I said earlier, Alex Cotty, he knows, he has a lot of inside connections, which helps get us, he'll give us some information like, hey, so-and-so's at this school now, it's like, and then we'll kind of sneak that into the rankings, and then people are like, how do you know that? Like, we got a mole out there. And then Dustin Benz, he does the Evansville semi-state, which is it's basically west side of Indy, and then southern Indianapolis, which is just like half the state that yes, and which is the hardest one to rank because they're so far apart. I mean, it's separated. I mean, it's a huge area, but he does a great job with that. We have Steve Craw and Jeremy Hines do weekly articles for us. We do like weekly feature articles, which is, pretty cool to see. We do just on wrestlers, whether they're, great story here or there, or it's one of the top wrestlers, Mason Paris, Brayton Lee, those types of guys that we do articles on. And then we have a lot of guys, people that take photos. Adam Hart, so you'll see he took this picture behind me, does a great job with photos. If you see, most of our photos are from him. And Paul Tincher has been taking pictures forever for us. Just people like that kind of help keep the website going. And it's not just me. People think it's just me, and I'm like, I don't do the rankings. That's not, here's the email to send that to, but things like that. It's great. And then obviously all the people in Indiana, just they contribute with the website. Users can post dual results, tournament results, and then even like individual results, like person A beat person B, for the website, because I mean it's so hard to keep up with all that stuff as even a small team like we have. And a lot of people contribute that kind of stuff, which makes it, they kind of take ownership in it. And obviously a lot of the times it's, when their kid beats someone good, which it helps us, but also, there are people that'll, if they see this kid beat someone good, then they're going to start putting their information because we beat that kid. And then, it ends up, I mean, we get 1,000 individual, 1,500 individual results submitted every year. And, maybe I do 500 of them, but a lot of those are, matches we don't get to see or whatever. But so it's pretty neat to see the community support and helping out with the website.
It's awesome. It sounds like you have a great team. That's pretty cool to see. Kind of, you shared kind of how you started, now how you're rolling, and have the event, and coach on top of it. That's awesome. So
it's been fun to see it grow, and kind of just sit back and like especially the tournament. It's like, holy cow, we have 800 kids coming to wrestle in Fort Wayne in October. So so that's just one of those things that it's kind of fun to see.
Tournament coming up here October 2nd, right?
Yep, we're gonna do a middle school, youth, and a girls tournament called the Gorilla Melee. It's in Mount Vernon. It's in Fortville, Indiana, at Mount Vernon High School, which is just northeast of Indianapolis. So hopefully we get some good feedback from that and get a lot of good kids. I know we have some good kids signed up right now, that some young kids that are going to be hammers, and actually won some matches at IPO. So so they're going to be coming and going against kids their own age. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joe. Anything else that we didn't hit on or touch kind of touch on? Anything else you want to share or talk about?
Just appreciate you coming on here, being the first Indiana person. So we have quite a history, and it's we're not just a basketball state. I know it's been one of my favorite things was we did the Dream Team Classic a few years ago in Brownsburg, and it was one of the cool things because you had everyone rooting for the Indiana guys, and we had like Brayton Lee, Mason Paris, Lucas Davison, just a lot of great matches. That was one of the things that kind of just made me realize what Indiana was about. And you had this gym packed by about 2,000 people. Oh, wow. It might have been more, and they're all cheering for the Indiana guys. Usually you go to state, we're going to get 8, 9, 10,000 people in the stadium. People aren't always cheering for the same person. So it was really neat to see all these Indiana people, out there cheering for our Indiana kids. And it's pretty cool. They put on a show, and it was kind of one of those nights I didn't fall asleep till 3 or 4 in the morning just because I was still pumped from it. Brayton Lee it was pretty cool. Brayton Lee, his home gym, went to overtime with a top guy, took him down right away, and that place exploded. And then like Ty Mills, who was never a state champ, he was right there. He was a couple-time runner-up, just one of those kids that just was as good as any of the state champs. Probably one of the best. Never won a state champion in anything. He was in his home gym. He was from Brownsburg also, and Pinn's the number one ranked guy in the country. Oh. And it was crazy. I mean, I'd never heard a gym that loud. And this was pretty cool to see, kids like that, in their home gyms. And just, Mason Paris, his last match, he wasn't very dramatic, but he did what he did. And it's fun to see, him go out like that and have that, that cheering crowd, everyone's, on their feet, kind of give him that last send off before he goes off to college. That kind of stuff's fun to see and, know that you're a part of.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. Best of luck. October 2nd. We all know like how those goes. Like,
yes.
You never know what's going to happen. What we're saying off air, the butterfly convention or something.
Yeah, there's this year, we're going to make a bingo card, just the random stuff that happens at a wrestling tournament. But Sunday morning, there was a butterfly festival at this marsh right next to where we were hosting our event, and it closed off the main way to get to the venue. And I'm
wrestling dads love that.
Oh yeah. I was getting a lot of crap from a lot of the coaches I know, like, oh, what do you close the road for? I go, I didn't close it. And so yeah, and it was a short detour, but it was one of those things that you can't plan for. You can't, you just shake your head. And luckily the road wasn't totally closed off, but I know there was a person that thought they were going to the butterfly festival, paid to get into a wrestling tournament, and was very pleasantly surprised that it was not a butterfly festival. So it's, the things you do, to run in a tournament, there's always things that pop up, whether you inform or not. And after you run enough of them, it kind of just, you just brush it off and you go with the flow. And that's when you can't do anything else other than grin and laugh about it later.
Right. In the moment, it's like, what the heck? And then you look back and it's like, this is crazy. So,
yeah.
But there's always something, right? Always something.
Yes.
Always something surprising.
Oh yeah. There's never a dull moment when you have a big event. And I'm sure when we have our event coming up, there's probably going to be some things that pop up that we aren't ready for. And hopefully it's nothing major. We had one year at our tournament, our router between the gyms, because we ran 2 gyms, got knocked out. And we had like about half.
What?
So basically we couldn't, it was just resending matches that would already be run to the mats, and people were like, we just wrestled this kid. And so we ended up having to shut everything down, get on the Wi-Fi, and
right.
Mark Durham, who runs the tournament, basically him and Kyle Keith are great with that. And he just sat down, was typing away, got everything figured out. And we had about a half-hour intermission. It was great for concessions, I'll tell you that much. And we had a kid that the kids were just standing around, and one kid ran and did a backflip over like 4 or 5 kids, and they videoed it. It was like on Instagram and stuff. And no one, surprisingly, no one complained. Everyone was like, okay, this happens at tournaments, and it's kind of fun and something to talk about. And every year I see that, video of that kid doing that, and I give him a hard time I was like, I thought you were going to break your neck. But yeah, so it's, there's always an adventure when running the tournament, and you got to be ready for anything and everything.
Yeah, that's for certain. So, well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, man.
It's time to start planning for next season's tournaments. Be sure you have Smitty's corner rugs on your mats to protect them and keep them clean. Get a hold of him directly at Smitty43952@gmail. If you have a tournament, it's the way to go. It creates a custom coach's box so your tournament runs efficiently and keeps the mats clean, since they use a top spray MRSA killer.
Man, best thing to do is drop me an email, Smitty43952@gmail.com. Or you can text me at 740-278-8016. And again, we got inventory, man, and get a quick turnaround time. And our rugs are all top sprayed with our MRSA staph killer that kills coronavirus as well, man. So, we were already keeping it clean, keeping it classy before Corona. Now you really got to have a corner rug, right?